This is Ryan Abraham, Shotgun Spratling, USCFootball.com. Instant analysis from USC's 17-14 hard-fought victory over the Oregon State Beavers here in Corvallis. Reser Stadium, half of Reser Stadium, you can see. There's no people over there, but it was loud in here, Shotgun. I was in these little temporary press boxes over there, weird angle to see the game. You were on the field with Chris. Everyone's talking about how loud it was. What was it like down there on the field?
I mean, the atmosphere was incredible. I mean, Lincoln Riley even talked about it, said it's the most unique atmosphere that they played, that he's been in, or a completely different one than he's ever played in. Asked Shane Lee about it. Hey, how's this compared to some of the ones you played in before? You know, obviously Alabama played some big games in the SEC, and he said, it's the same as what I've been through before. He said you get on the field and you kind of zone out everything around you because there's so much noise. I thought the atmosphere was incredible. The student section, the entire bottom half of the stadium, or the bottom rows behind the Oregon State bench, were all students, and they were going crazy from the minute they came in. They came in before warm-ups even started, and they were going wild the entire time. There were a lot of expletives used today. There were a lot of vulgar terms and stuff, but I think that shows you that USC's slowly getting back to, at least on the right path to where they were before, to where they're the hated team again.
Yeah.
And, fans are going to come out. This isn't a rivalry game necessarily. This isn't Oregon State, Oregon. And I asked Travis Dye about that too. I said, hey, you played in the stadium. He said this is, the best crowd that he's seen at Reser Stadium. Obviously he's played in previously the Civil War rivalry here with Oregon. So I thought it was a great atmosphere. I thought that they really affected the game at times with USC struggling to get play calls in, to get struggling with the play clock a lot in the first half. So the atmosphere was great, and it was an incredible college football game, and it lived up to the billing of what this atmosphere provided. So I thought it was a great night.
Yeah, very different. Lincoln Riley talked about being more proud of this victory because it showed that your mettle, right? You had to show a lot of toughness. USC had scored touchdowns on the first 3 drives in all 3 games, 5 drives in Stanford. Didn't score a touchdown with it until the fourth quarter in this one. So this was a completely different kind of game. And it's funny, I was talking to Taj Washington, who, if you remember in the Rice game, he was USC's leading receiver. And then even though Jordan Addison had a couple of touchdowns there, he was USC's leading receiver again today. It just seemed to be someone wherever he was around, that's where he was getting the ball. And he talked about just the kind of resiliency and what you learn about the team. And I was like, well, what did you learn? And he said, and it was one of the coolest quotes I've got, like doing a post-game interview. He pulls a piece of paper out of his pants. It's like, I wrote down 3 words before I went into this game. And it was obedience, trust, and resiliency. And he said afterwards, and he looked back and I think it was foreshadowing for how this game went. And it was pretty profound. And I was just like, wow, just come out of nowhere to have that written down. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. But I feel like, road games can be a bonding experience. Winning the close ones, the tough ones, getting the Caleb Williams on that 4th down and Brett Nealon pushing him over, getting those interceptions when you needed to. It's just, Lincoln Riley seemed very happy that they were able to fight through this, because you're not going to be able to win college football games 45-17 every week. Yeah,
this is a game that previous teams would not have won.
Yes.
It would have fallen apart at some point. Something goes bad, the offense isn't clicking. And I even said early in the game, I said it looked 2021-esque with the offense, where they were moving the ball in the first quarter, but for the 4th down, don't convert. And then they miss a field goal. And those were the type of things that would pile up, and there was no recovering from it in previous years for USC. So I thought the way that this team showed heart, and showed this is a team of did an interview earlier this week, and they called USC a team of mercenaries. And, you watch all these action movies, and, mercenaries end up going in all these different directions, and that becomes, the crux of them falling apart. That's what's different about this group, is they're all going in the same direction. They're all playing for each other. And Lincoln Riley mentioned that. He said this game kind of shows the culture of this team and the way that they've grown together. And that's what it takes. This was, you would look at this and say, the offense puts up 17 points on the board, and you would think, there's no way that USC wins.
No way.
Because of the way the defense hadn't been able to perform. But Lincoln Riley said, you could already tell. He said he doesn't even have to look at the film. He could tell you that there's much less busts in this game than there were in any of the first 3 games. And the defense, again, 4 turnovers, once again, 4 more interceptions. See here, right, I asked him. He got his first career one tonight. I asked him, is it kind of a feeling like everyone has to get one now? Like, are you feeling kind of left out if you don't get one? He's like, yeah, if I see somebody get one, I know I got to go get one out there as well. And just, they're playing, great in creating those things. Tips and overthrows, we got to have those. That's the saying that Alex Grinch tells the DBs all the time. And, they had that once again tonight. Max Williams with the tipped from Eric Gentry, that 6'6" frame, the wingspan, once again causing problems.
He was all smiles in the press game, the presser afterwards. Yeah.
He was all smiles on the sideline. He had an interception early in the game, his first one. All smiles after that one. They were all smiles, and they were celebrating on the Beaver logo after the game. Some of the players, which did not sit well with the Oregon State fans, which even led to one Oregon State fan jumping over the railing and taking off and charging at some of the USC people and being tackled. Perfect form tackle too by the security person. That was
those were cops. Those were real policemen that tackled him.
No, before that, but there was a security person. Oregon State, someone that works for Oregon State, perfect form tackle, and then the cops just jumped on top of the guy. So interesting scene after the game. Like I said, it was rowdy from 2 hours before the game started. When USC's players were coming out, Jordan Addison flipped the bird to the student section because there were was FUSC was the chant that they were starting, and then eventually it evolved into F the Trojans. There were a lot of chants going on. It was, like I said, it was a fun atmosphere. It was really fun to be around and see everyone so involved and so energetic and enthusiastic when we've been through a lot of games in the past couple of years where there was no energy at all, and there was energy all around the stadium today.
There was a lot. I was here in 2008 telling some of the younger people about it when, the whole stadium stormed the field. Mark Sanchez, we're all around like, oh my God, we didn't know what was going on. As media, we didn't know what to do. That was crazy. Obviously, a little different result today. You mentioned Sayre Wright getting his first career interception. Really soon after that, he gets a really bad PI call. It looks like Oregon State's driving down the field, and Mekhi Blackman makes this over-the-shoulder crazy interception. The defense comes up with another stop. It's just one of those things where it feels like these guys were bonding together. No matter what was going on, the USC offense would go 3 and out, and the defense would still come back and make a stop. Alex Grinch even mentioned after the game, Oregon State, when they scored their last touchdown, they took over the ball at the USC 22 after, the offense went 3 and out. He still wasn't happy about that, but the way this defense has grown, it just seems like this was not an easy offense to stop. And it was a night where they had to get a bunch of turnovers for them to win, and they were able to do it.
Yeah, and they held Oregon State to, I believe, 300-something yards. I mean, there was no big standouts. There weren't big gashing runs. The big chunk plays that they had given up a lot in the previous couple weeks, weren't necessarily there. There were a couple of ones for Oregon State, especially earlier in the game. But, it was that bend but don't break a little bit. And then when they got in the red zone, it wasn't just don't break. They started pushing back Oregon State. Yeah. I mean, a couple times Oregon State, they miss a field goal late in the fourth quarter where they have a couple penalties back-to-back. USC, comes up with a big stop there. And that kind of, you see that, and then the Mekhi Blackman. And this was kind of the fourth quarter, just a lot of action happened where you thought with the Mekhi Blackman interception, it's like, okay, that's probably going to seal it for USC if they can just get a couple first downs, kind of do something on offense, and they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
They were backed up in their end zone. They're at the 1 yard line. There was a huge play, a huge non-play earlier in the game where Travis Dye fumbles at the 1 yard line, nearly is a safety because he runs into his own guy, nearly falls over for a safety there. Instead, he gets past the goal line, fumbles the ball. It pops up straight in the air. I don't know how no one recovered it while it's in the air. Somehow USC comes up with it, and then they get out of the almost. It felt like they were going to drive for 99 yards because they get a third down conversion soon after that. They end up having to punt that, but just they flipped the field there, and they weren't able to flip the field in the fourth quarter when Mekhi Blackman gets his interception, and that what leads to a punt and a quick return. And now Oregon State starts that drive on the 22. They punch it in. This place goes crazy. And you go, USC's offense hasn't done anything all day. Yeah. Are they going to be able to do anything here? And with I think it was 4:41s when they got the ball back, Caleb Williams and the offense on the sideline, Lincoln Riley told him, hey, we've been in these situations in the past. It's not a big deal. Let's go out there and make plays. And Caleb Williams made the big plays when he needed to. A fourth down run where he's about to be stopped short. Brett Nealon with a huge push. The offensive line shoves him over. And that leads to, USC getting down the field. And, I think it was 21 yard line. Jordan Addison, a perfect hole shot from Caleb Williams, cover 2, just puts it in there. And Jordan Addison told me, he said, I saw the ball was coming. I was trying to have late hands so the DB didn't recognize that the ball was coming, the safety coming over. And then so he catches the ball. He says, perfect throw. He gets in the end zone. Then he kind of waved to the crowd. And I said, well, what was that? He said, pack it up. It's time to go home.
There was a lot of interaction between the fans and the players. It was crazy. There was a lot of weird stuff going on. Weird, being in this weird little press box in the field and half the stadium and everything. I mean, it was just a very strange environment. I think USC is really lucky to come away with this victory. It was good that the offense was able to put something together late in the game, because it would have been a shame to spoil this really, tremendous effort by the USC defense. The way they were to come up with stops, force a field goal attempt that was missed, forcing the 4 turnovers. I think that was a really big deal. The offense was clunky for sure. Caleb Williams was not on. He didn't look great last week against Fresno State, but they scored 45 points. Today wasn't that good. Travis Dye, though, we'll talk about Caleb Williams too, but Travis Dye, his 3rd straight game over 100 yards. First play of the game was like a 26-yard run. He punches it in on 4th down for the USC's first touchdown. He was just, and I talked to him this week heading into the game about, he's played in this rivalry, but when he was playing for Oregon, you could tell there was a little something. He's not a guy that's going to be talking trash. There was a little something extra for Travis Dye in this one.
Yeah, and he got a little round of applause from Eric Gentry when you asked a question about him having his 3rd straight 100-yard game. And I think all his teammates, if they were in that presser, would have given him a round of applause as well. He might be the heart and soul of this team, to be honest, even though it's his first year on campus with USC. He's playing through some injuries right now. He got banged up again. Looked like his shoulder was kind of dragging late in the 4th quarter when USC has to punt from their goal line, basically. So for him to come back out, and he had a couple big runs on that, the final drive as well. It seemed like, in part, that may be the reason why USC's not feeding him as much. But you feel like, man, just keep giving this guy the ball, because you saw in that first drive, huge chunk play to start the drive, and then USC throws it, and doesn't get anything going. And it just, they weren't taking that run that was there over and over with Travis Dye, because he was just sifting through their defense so well. And he does all the small things that you want a running back to do, as far as he never goes down on first contact. A 1-yard gain stopped at the line becomes a 3-yard game. A 3-yard game becomes a 5-yard game. He just knows how to kind of bounce off of tackles, kind of fall forward. Doesn't take as many huge blows, because he just kind of contorts his body and goes towards the ground when he knows he's about to be tackled. So he does all those small things, and then he's just a mentor on the sideline for all those younger guys as well. So, it's great to see him have success, especially I know he wanted to have success in this game, with it being the former rivalry, I guess, for him. But once again, 3rd straight 100-yard game, and they leaned on him. This 2nd week in a row where they've leaned on him much more heavily than kind of the two-back system with Austin Jones that they had used the first couple weeks. So it's interesting to see how some of those things are starting to evolve, as far as the rotations, as far as who's getting in as much. And I thought it was interesting. Jordan Addison didn't have an impact at all to begin the game. He had no targets in the first half. He wasn't even playing as much as he normally did. They were rotating receivers a little bit more. And for him to stay focused and locked in, and I said at one point in the second half to Chris Trevino, I said, I wonder if he's a guy, because we don't really know him that well, if he's a guy that if the ball's not coming to him, he kind of shuts it down a little bit. And that proved not to be the case. He showed in the 4th quarter, hey, I'm going to go make some plays. They had one, there was a couple plays where they just didn't connect, and Caleb Williams just was off tonight. He just didn't connect. He was 16 of 36 for 180 yards, had some open guys at times, didn't get some help at other times, used his legs effectively at times, held the ball too long at times. So it was an up and down night for him. It's one he can definitely learn from. But when the moment mattered, Caleb Williams runs for the first down with a little help on 4th down, and then just puts the ball in a small window, makes one of those special type throws that, an NFL type throw to win the game.
Yeah, I think you started off talking about this, the right thing to look at this. If you're a USC fan that's been complaining about the defense, you can't complain about this effort. If you think, now the offense is terrible, whatever you complain about, this is a game that USC would have lost. Any of these teams from the last 7-8 years, USC would have lost this game. There's a number of things that had to go right for USC to win this one, and it did. And I think you saw the effort, you saw the camaraderie between these guys. They talked about, talking about the practices that they've been doing. That's what gets you ready for this stuff. So pretty impressive overall to come away with this win. And, I thought last week was a bit of a clunker, and they still, they win going away. This was way more of a clunker, and then, end up getting the victory. It's an important one. I think this is one, if you get a road win in the Pac-12, they've played 2 Pac-12 road games, won them both. This is a big one, and this is one that you had circled, and you get this win at Oregon State, and things start to line up, and it's a big matchup in a couple weeks against against Utah. But just the fact that you were able to put this win together, I think that's what USC fans should take away from this. It was not a game like if you play this game 9 out of 10 times the way you played, you're probably not going to win. But they got this win, and I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, and Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch in different ways said basically that really good teams find a way to win in different ways. You've seen the offense just crush and they win, and the defense give up a bunch of yards, but get some turnovers. You see tonight the defense, being the side to lead the way. And, asked a couple different guys about that, and I'm not remembering exactly who said it, but it said, I think it was Jordan Addison maybe, or Shane Lee said it shows the resiliency of this team, that they can find ways to win, when the offense isn't going great, or when the defense, is giving up a lot of yards in one of the previous games. Like, if you can find different ways to win, that just gives you that much more of an opportunity to win when one thing's not going right. You can't just shut down one thing and suddenly everything falls apart. This team is finding different ways to win, and that speaks to the culture of the team. But yeah, this is a huge win for USC. When you're on the road, when you're in basketball season, you want to split on the road and win your games at home, because there's just crazy things happen on the road. It's tough to play on the road. College sports is that way. And Lincoln Riley mentioned that. He said, hey, when you go into a conference game on the road, crazy stuff can happen. You see all these nail-biter games. There's plenty of them today. Oklahoma losing today to Kansas State. That's point that one out right there. I'm sure some Oklahoma fans, if they're checking out our YouTube because they're sad and wanted to be mad at USC, there's different ways that you can lose a game. Can you find ways to win? And that's what this USC team has shown so far. And to get to 4-0 in the Pac-12 with 2 road wins, or 4-0 overall, 2-0 in the Pac-12 with 2 road wins. So that means the rest of your schedule out. I think you have UCLA and Utah as the only 2 road games remaining. Arizona as well. So they're going to be able to close with more home games in conference. So this gives them a great opportunity to build on this. And hey, they got a lot of stuff they got to clean up. Lincoln Riley was quick to mention that. Not saying that this was a perfect win or anything, but you find a way to win and you give yourself a chance to continue to get better. And that's what I think you're seeing from different parts of the team. Now, the offense struggled today, but the defense, seeing that there weren't the misfits, seeing that there weren't the blown assignments, I think that's just showing you that this group is slowly coming together in different ways, and the defense in particular getting better and better as the season progresses potentially. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's going to wrap it up here from Reser Stadium. The USC Trojans 17-14 win. Never thought I'd be saying that score after this game, but 17-14 win over the Oregon State Beavers. Go to 4-0, 2-0 in the Pac-12. Coming home next week for another night game against a struggling Arizona State team that lost their head coach. So they got curb stomped today too. So we'll see. I'm not going to say it's going to be an easier game, but it should be a lot easier than this one.
Well, this is potentially USC's final. This is USC's final Pac-12 game in Reser Stadium. USC will not travel to Oregon State, I don't believe, unless they make some schedule adjustments next year. So find a way to win and go out here for a place that's been, for different USC coaches, a house of horrors at times. Yeah. And you mentioned the 2008 game and how different that season could have been if they found a way to win that one. They couldn't find a way. USC, they fell behind for the first time this season. You look at that 2008 game, they fell behind, couldn't ever catch back up. They fell behind tonight, but they found a way, even falling behind multiple times, found a way to overcome it and get the win.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's going to sign off from Research Stadium. Shotgun Spratling, I am Ryan Abraham. Make sure you check out USCfootball.com for tons more coverage of the Trojans win over Oregon State.